Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Sylphin with a patch note update video. It has been so long since I've done one of these. Might be a little rusty. Hope everybody is doing very well. So I have something hanging off my dilapidated headphones. Hope you guys are enjoying. Thank you so much for the wait for 0.3. It was an absolute ton of work, 10, 12, 14-hour days for some of the team to really make this all happen. It's big. So team is absolutely crazy, absolutely fantastic, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this patch. So let's just get right into it. 0.3.0 major optimization, balancing, and bug fixes. This is on playfault.com, where you can find pretty much, hopefully, a lot about the video game that we also want to add in more information to it too. So a lot of the environment has changed. The lighting has changed, so we've reworked dawn to make it more realistic, less bright, improved foliage density, placement on the lanes, foliage shadows in the distance. A lot of stuff here. It looks not completely different, but it gives a completely different feeling for sure when you're playing, and the performance is better. My computer's pretty darn good, so I wasn't really having any problems before, but I can make it go into 4K resolution, just display on my 1080p monitor, and I would at that point have it would actually dip 60s lower than 60 for moments. Nah, I can play 4K. I can play 4K the whole time, and yeah, just incredible. So a lot has been done. It feels completely different, at least to me, when you're in the game, and it just looks really good. This was a lot of the work behind the scenes. So restructured the project, which allows the team to push patches, fixes, but also add new content in a faster and more convenient fashion for us, so we can even just iterate and implement much faster going forward, which had to happen at some point, and it took a long time, but it fixed most hitches caused by lack of RAM, VRAM, or use of hard drive. So again, for me, that had no problem, but if you had a low speed hard drive, low VRAM on your graphics card, and then RAM just in general, you would definitely see issues with that. So great that we can give it out to more people with more machines at a better performance. Heavily lowered disk size, heavily lowered VRAM and RAM usage, server code optimization. Yeah. The sustainability of this is so important from the grassroots, indie studio. It's really important. So that's bigger than you think, for sure. Some hitches at the start of the game still might occur. I got some as well. That was in engine, so actually no, it didn't happen in game. But we're still working, obviously, absolutely wanting to improve that. Animations, movement animation smoothness, or more smooth as you're moving. Fix some heroes sliding, and fix some heroes not pivoting. Chimera would slide on the ground, then take some steps going forward. Yeah. So bugs, such as those allowing you to sell your trinket. Obviously, you can't do that. That's a special slot only for your trinket. Place wards, causing wards not to detect people due to terrain elevation. So kind of silly things there. Cleave damage was not 10%. It was and added power. So something was causing cleave damage to just be outrageous. Fixing issue was causing some abilities to get stuck when aiming them on stairs and around towers. That was really huge. A lot of mid laners, lots of spellcasters trying to use abilities around towers. Really, really annoying. And all of these. So this was really weird. If you had an enemy behind you with Narbash, your thunk would hit them, and you'd be like, huh? And it would actually hit them. And then Raptor and Prime will actually work for the daily weekly challenges, so that's great. Bugs for the heroes. You'd fix an issue that was allowing counter slip to shadow slip through walls. It's some walls were actually extending the range of her Shadow Slip. That's really the issue. At some point, we'll probably look into having that as a feature. You can Shadow Slip through walls. Makes sense because she slips through dimensions. But we'll have to see about that, right? We'll have to have that discussion at some point. Teleporting to an enemy that was backing will no longer take you with them and instantly kill you in their fountain. It's just about consistency, and it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't feel good. So that was the thinking there. Yes, we could punish people for backing on teleporting onto somebody that's backing, and you get punished for it. May entertain that in the future. As of right now, just make that feel good and consistent. Black hole vaccination is kind of beginning to be displaced by Murdoch's shield push. Obviously, not knockbacks occur it, but displacements like Murdoch's RMB are different. They're not technically the same. Greystone fixing these shows causing his passive to block more auto attacks than intended. It was very strong at some point in there's certain scenarios, so that's good. Chimera fixed the trajectory of Chimera's leap to not go horizontally. Yeah, leaping to an enemy that was backing. No longer get killed in the fountain. Command drone remove the collision. It's never meant to have collision, so just bad bug on our part. And fixed an issue that was allowing Lieutenant Bellica to target enemies through walls. Again, which will target through walls, which won't, which should. That's a big discussion that I'm sure we'll have in the future. As of for now, making things consistent. Murdoch aiming reticule now lights up red when you're aiming at an enemy. There's a little bug, obviously supposed to, but it wasn't. Camera now resets correctly if it continuously cancel and re-aim to the ability. Sawing my people, you couldn't heal people when they had red or blue buff, so now you can. Steel, it was blocking allied stuff, so now much better support ability, so you can actually put it down and your allies can utilize it. Radiant Poise was not shedding tower aggro, so now it does. Nirvana Jewel, same thing. Quantum Shift just didn't show up on the HUD. Warlock's Aegis. Yeah, some things were not causing it to proc, obviously an issue, and you could see it. So that was weird. And Substitution, it was crashing servers. So thank you for those that were not abusing it. And if you were, shame on you. Aspects. Queen fixed Queen, giving 2/3 ability instead of 1/3. So that was a silly unintended issue. And Rogue now able to actually pass through enemy minions, so that's good. Now, game balance. So these huge changes, the really exciting part. Jungle minions, basically, instead of spawning as 2 right off the beginning of the game, and then 1 just every single minute would spawn. Doesn't matter how many were on there, how many were killed. Well, if there was 5, then they would stack up to 5. No longer like that. No longer like that. 3. Well, here, we'll just read it. Jungle minions now spawn in groups of 3 and will only respawn 2 minutes after they have died. Jungle buffs no longer have 2 white minions that spawn with them, so they're just on their own. Health and damage for white jungle minions has stayed the same, while the buffs have been made stronger overall to compensate for the change. So instead of facing 2 white jungle minions off the start of the match, there's now 3. So that first clear, lots of impact for that. And subsequent tiers as you get as you get items and stuff, then obviously falls off as you become stronger. But yes, experience gain within jungle has been increased overall, while gold gain has been decreased slightly. It was a fair amount before. Now bring that down slightly, be in line with everything else. Hopefully it's good. Huge implications, because you can now have meaningful choices. Junglers will now need to strategically plan their jungle routes to coincide with when camps are spawning, and will enable meaningful invasions of the enemy's jungle. So now you can invade the enemy jungle. Now they have nothing for 2 minutes. They got nothing for 2 minutes. Whereas before, it was every minute, right? Minion was spawning. So They could ignore it. They could ignore it, and you know, yeah, get five camps in the previous system, and just go kill it. There you go. Now means much more. And conversely, it means much more for you to leave a camps alive because it's not respawning, right? So it's just sitting there, and you're not clearing it. So the more that you clear your jungle, the more they can respawn. The less you clear your jungle, they're just not going to build up. So definitely much better system for you to jungle with. Yes, so very, very exciting. Raptors, buff to their health. It just needs to be a bit of a bigger objective for teams to battle over. Really, that's quite it. Raptors, expect a big change. Raptors as well in the future. Plasma Blade was absolutely insane, so we had to change it. So essentially increase the gold cost because it is a very, very, very powerful item, very, very powerful item. This is staple to a lot. Stable to high attack speed heroes like Twin Blast, or just any carry really. Any hero that wanted to do a lot of on-hit damage. It's really key. So up that to a bit more of an expensive item. Attack speed reduced to help combat how efficient it was, and then the passive type change from energy to physical. Just keep it more consistent and not take advantage of the lower energy armor in the game, period. And its child item also need to go down so that it makes sense. Warlock's Aegis is a interesting one. Really, this kind of just says it all. I hesitate because it's a big discussion to have about Warlock's Aegis. Essentially, yes, it does give quite a bit of stats. It does give quite a bit of stats. Usually defensive items are more efficient overall. The issue with Warlock's Aegis is that there aren't a lot of mage items that are high damage. Like it gives a lot of stats, but there's lots of other items that aren't in the game that should give way more stats. So it's kind of living in its own little bubble, so to speak, that has yet to be busted, and that's why. But again, hopefully this cooldown will make it much better. It should be working only out of combat, but for now this should work, and this should help it make it not as enticing as a first buy. Just 100 gold, but I mean, game after game after game, you'll notice that 100 gold. Aspects. So Beast Hunter has been changed because of big jungle change. Beast Hunter will be much more relevant. 10 to 15% increased, reduced damage from neutral monsters. If you are a hero with no sustain, so definitely not Chimera, you will need it'll definitely take advantage of this. Chimera can pretty much not utilize it. It really doesn't need it. Boris can get away without it. Sevrog definitely needs something with this, and it goes well with him overall. The max stacks have changed, so it's a different aspect now. Instead of just you'd reach it in the early mid game and that was it, right? Because now basically the whole entire aspect is irrelevant because the damage from jungle minions doesn't matter either. So wasn't really much. Now there's actually relevance. Now there's relevance throughout the whole match. 120 stacks to get that full unlocked power, physical power, and health reduced per stack to account for it. So Beast Hunter now takes twice as many minions to acquire the same stats as before, but the maximum effect that it can give you is much more. It's 50%. Well, yeah, it's basically the same effect that it had before. Yes, yeah, 50% more of effect than it was previous, but now it takes twice as many minions to get. So a bit more of a meaningful grind, so you can actually get that, and stays as a relevant aspect throughout the whole game. Titan is just really strong. There's lots of health, lots of scaling here. Like Sevrog's really strong. There's lots of health in general for people. It just too much. So bring that down a little bit to 5%. Still very strong, still 5% extra health, which compounds with your armor. So that effective HP that this grants you, much more than just this number. So will help that out, and it also helps entice other aspects for you to use as well. Templar, when you're diving the back line, it's surprising how far you are from your enemies. So melee supports or anybody that wants to take Templar should help that a little bit as well. Warlock, really nice change here. Instead of every 5th ability, it's now every 4th ability, and the movement speed is more than doubled. So it makes much more sense. Most heroes have 4 abilities, right? Most heroes have 4 abilities. Not all of them are damage abilities, but 4 makes much more sense than 5. So somebody like Countess, for example, Q, right click, E, Alt, something like that, right? Boom, you get it. If Q was your first, it was indeed your first ability. So it makes much more sense this way. Hopefully much more relevant, and we can see some pretty incredible plays come from this. Queen, there's no little blurb about it. I can provide the blurb. Essentially, when you looked at how many minion kills people were getting, 6 minion kills for 1 energy power. It was a very teeny weeny tiny little amount compared to the amount that they already had from items. So bring it up, make it a little bit more actually relevant, basically. Ace is going to be removed. The bonus attack range should be, if it was to be a thing, be something very expensive that you buy, or something else, as being a default from level 1 from minute 0. Yeah, it's basically kind of unhealthy in a sense. So it will be removed, but until then we'll reduce that bonus attack range so that it can entice other aspects for you to pick if you so choose. So hero, Boris, he's really strong. And he's the kind of hero that punishes decision making. That's part of MOBAs, and it's if you are overextended, it is his job by design to run you down and kill you. So it's your job not to be overextended with a Boris around, right? Low health with no safety behind. And to do his ability to do this is just really strong. It's just too strong. So trying to bring him down. His win rate actually isn't all that crazy, but try to make it a little bit more skillful, right? Try to make him more skillful in how he does it. So base movement speed is reduced because he gets a ton of movement speed off of his Q. So now it's just a little bit reduced. So now you have to rely on and be more skillful when you are actually using your Q, because the Q movement speed actually reduced as well, so that if you do miss with your basic attack, for example, you aren't getting 35% movement speed instead of 20. So now you got to make sure that you hit, because the movement speed that you are getting is lower. So try to make that more skillful. Attack speed also reduced, as it was especially in the early game, when he's very strong. To help him with that, and the bare necessities in the late game was a lot. 3.6 seconds instead of 2.8. That 3 seconds is a lot. 3.6 seconds is a lot, and you can get a lot of stuff done within that time. So bring that down just a bit for him. And of course, we're going to keep looking. Obviously, definitely keep looking at him, because he's the unstoppable bear, and he's awesome. Bellica, overall, was doing too much as a control mage. Had really good control, and that kind of hasn't that did change here, and it was too much, and her damage a little bit too much. So just bring her down back in line with what control mage is kind of supposed to be, and then especially compared to the rest of the roster, bring her down as well. So a little bit less scaling under Q is meant to be more of a control ability, and then also, pardon me, her stun. Basically, our bad, not taking into account the duration of her knockup. So bring that down, and also her Void Bomb having ridiculous scaling, bring that down to something that's still really, really good. And her passive as well, bring that down a bit, because that happens every single time that she attacks. Muriel, she weak, underperforming. Saw that in her win rate as well. It's a lot of feedback as was indicating that too. So shields brought up a bit. Something that a lot of people haven't noticed is that her E gives half of the shield when it forms, and then half when it explodes. So you really have to take that into consideration. Make sure that you plant that E in a good location, so that players can utilize both of those pops as much as possible. And then the alacrity, the speed at which the projectile travels increased a bit. Help make that feel better when you're using that, for sure. Narbash, really, really strong. Sustain, incredible, especially with Magician, which feels fine on every other mage. It feels great on everybody else, but on Narbash, combine his passive with Magician, it's just too much. So reduce that a little bit, well, 20% relative to itself, but 0.5 to 0.4. And then also the Thunk projectile. You couldn't actually use it over top minions because it would just hit the minions in the head. So now you're able to do that, but it's just too easy to land, right? And if you wanted to split in between enemies, you couldn't, because it's just too big of a hitbox. So now it's more precise and more rewarding for you to use. Sevarog, he's really, really, really strong. He's really strong, especially in the early game, and he's meant to be this ramping up hero that becomes this monstrosity if you just let him farm and get these stacks. So in the early game, his level 6, and he's still laning or still in the jungle. Increase that ultimate just so that he can't knock people around so much. And then his stacks, the health and that power, we've taken what he gets from his stacks and instead shifted it to the tiers. So instead of a more constant progression up in health and damage on his Sylphin, it's now more bumpy. It's more bumpy. So you really need to reach that tier, unlock that power, literally and figuratively, and then you get it. So he's more blocky in his power spikes, which is good because it's supposed to ramp up more. And just the early game a little too strong. And to subjugate again, reduced by 1 second, not taking into account that root. So now it is what it's basically supposed to be. Steel, very, very, very oppressive as well, especially with cooldown reduction. So increased his RMB from 9 to 11 seconds, and then his shield charge, relatively fine level 1, so it's fine. It's just late game. You know, up that a bit because of that cooldown, and that is it. So guys, hope you guys enjoyed a little patch notes from me. It was a lot of work. This balance work, really nice to see. I swear I'm not sick. I'm just talking lots and not used to talking this much. It was a lot of work from the team, and I'm very proud of the team and what we've been able to do in these weeks. It was a ton of work. I'm just very happy to get it out, because we definitely never intended to go this long without patches. Definitely not. We're very happy that we can get back to regular patches and updates as well. So thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Get on, folk. Come down, play some games, have some fun. It feels really good. It feels really good. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like the video if you like it, dislike, share with the community. And of course, subscribe if you want more Fault content in the future. Till next time, like always, stay positive and optimistic.